I don't know where to begin with this. My wife, 33, and I, 34 male, have two kids together, a male tween and a female tween. We've been together for 12 years and married for 8. Around a year ago, I noticed my wife was increasingly sending me these trad wife or traditional housewife TikToks. I have nothing against that type of relationship, but I don't think it makes sense for our current family situation. I do earn quite a bit more money than my wife, and enough to sustain our family on my own, but I don't see the need to do so. I work 80% and my wife 50%, and besides, Wednesdays when both of us are working, either one of us is always home with the kids. I could work 100% and let my wife be a stay-at-home mom, but again, both kids are attending school, and in my mind, there's no need for my wife to be home 24/7. She got increasingly pushy about it over the past 2 months. Again, I just kept telling her that there wasn't any need for that, and if we did decide to go down that route, what would she be doing for the hours that my kids attended school? I know our house doesn't need to be clean for 6 hours a day. She would constantly try to butter me up with, "You would have dinner ready every day when coming home from work," and something about unlimited intimacy or some BS like that. Again, in the nicest way possible, I would remind her that our kids were toddlers and that our current work-life schedule allowed us to function perfectly fine. We got into a pretty heated argument 2 weeks ago about it, and my wife completely stopped having intimacy with me to show me what I would be missing out on. She's basically been treating me like a roommate since. I just thought she'd get over it, and this was just a phase. But God, I was wrong. I came home from work yesterday and saw a bunch of presents on the dining table. At first I thought they were all for me, since my birthday was in a week, but then I saw the labels on them addressed to my wife. I read one of the letters attached to one of the presents. The last sentence was literally, "It was such a pleasure working alongside you, and I wish you all the best moving forward." I thought this was some sick prank. A few minutes later, my wife just casually strolled into the living room, acting like nothing was wrong. I guess she saw my mad expression and dared to tell me, "You'll get over it." I just lost it. I just left without saying another word and went to my parents' house. I feel absolutely disrespected. Why the heck would my wife think it was okay to quit her job without telling me and expect me to be fine with it? My wife has been bombarding me with texts and calls, demanding to know where I am and that the kids miss me. I just told her to go find a lawyer and that I was done with her, and then I proceeded to block her. My son just sent me a voicemail crying and asking why I was divorcing mom and if I was leaving the family, and I guess that kind of broke my heart. I haven't responded, and honestly, I don't know what to say to him. My mother-in-law has also been demanding that I return home and apologize to my wife. My parents also seem to be siding with my wife, since they're traditional Muslims. My mom also used to be a stay-at-home mom. I feel wrong for immediately jumping to divorce without hearing her out. Besides, this whole job drama, I love my wife too much for this to be the end of our otherwise perfect marriage. But on the other hand, I feel like I've lost complete trust in her. Should I swallow my pride and let my wife stay at home from now on? Or should I follow through on divorcing her? How should I navigate this situation? Am I the idiot here? Nothing wrong with being a stay-at-home parent, but your partner has to agree to it, and you don't get to strong-arm them into it. This level of blatant manipulation would be a deal-breaker for me. Let her be a trad wife with some other sucker. You are not the idiot. She had a game plan. Exactly. You don't just quit your job and then get presents from everyone. That happens when you hand in your notice and leave like a good employee, meaning she handed in her notice at least a couple of weeks ago and has been quietly failing to mention that fact to her husband. She's had plenty of time to think about what she's doing, and she decided, screw it. I just won't tell him until it's too late. You don't do that if you care about what your partner thinks. Not to mention, someone is using a tween boy as emotional blackmail. How else does he know OP has threatened divorce? Wife has absolutely no respect for OP or their partnership. I can't see how she can recover from this. I'd divorce her and let her work 100% of the time to pay her own bills. Update. Am I the idiot for threatening my wife with divorce after she quit her job to be a trad wife? This week has definitely been tough on me. This whole family drama has definitely taken a toll on me, physically and mentally. I just want to add a few crucial details. I suffer from a genetic heart condition that puts me at risk of stress-induced cardiac arrest. I used to work full-time but was forced to cut down on my work after suffering a silent heart attack. This was nearly a decade ago, but since then, I've worked on my own physical and mental well-being. Some people don't understand me constantly mentioning why working the extra 20% was such an issue. I honestly don't know how much time I have left, and my kids are the most important things in my life. For my own mental health, it's essential that I get to spend time with my kids throughout the week. Besides my wife and kids, I have nothing. I hate my darn job and purely continue for the sake of my kids and wife. Well, after spending a day at my parents' house, eventually, I felt enough time had passed for me to gather my thoughts on everything. What she did seemed like the ultimate slap in the face, but I went back with the intention of resolving this and didn't want to escalate this nightmare. My wife seemed happy I returned, but wasn't apologetic at all. The kids, especially my son, were ecstatic, which made me ignore the lack of remorse for the time being. That same night, after putting my kids to bed, I told her we needed to have a serious discussion. I told her how I felt about everything she did. The fact that she knows about my health condition and still went through with it. The fact that I set clear boundaries and she still chose to quit her job without my consent. How the fact that she told my son that I was going to abandon the family really felt like a stab in the back. She didn't even seem remorseful once throughout all of this. The fact that she chose her own happiness to my detriment. I sacrificed so much for the family and got repaid like this. The fact that we now as a family have to make major lifestyle changes since a third of our family income vanished. For a split second, I saw an ounce of sadness in her eyes before she returned to being annoyed with me. I simply told her to lay out her side of the story. Here's a summary of what she said. She felt ignored by me, constantly rejecting her proposal. She had worked long enough, and this was finally the time for her to enjoy her life as a true wife. She also said that I was being a baby about spending extra time with the kids. That really made me angry, and we ended up getting into a heated argument. I couldn't bear any of it anymore, and just ended up sleeping in the guest room. Until yesterday, nothing changed. She constantly tried to play everything off and wanted to embrace her new role by constantly trying to have intimacy with me and making me my favorite dishes. It just felt like she was trying to manipulate me again, and I wasn't having any of it. I just kept on sleeping in the guest room. Well, my birthday was yesterday. After work, my wife and kids picked me up, and we ate dinner together. This was probably the first time I genuinely had a smile on my face in a week. Well, that smile vanished because she tried to seduce me again later that night. I rejected her, and to my surprise, she had a full-on mental breakdown. I just held her as she started apologizing for what she did. She claimed she didn't understand how much she hurt me. She was sorry for making me feel like an afterthought, etc. We ended up sleeping in the same bed yesterday. I felt like things were finally moving in the right direction, and I asked again about her searching for a new job today. Instead of getting mad, she just replied, "I need to think about it." Yeah, that's where things are as of today. Do you actually think she's looking for a job? Here's a hint. She's not. She's still manipulating you. The seduction didn't work. Out come the crocodile tears. You need to fortify your boundaries and recognize she's just looking for chinks in your armor. There's nothing to think about. As far as she's aware, you folded. She won. She no longer needs to work, and you're footing all the bills. My daughter, Tween, had picture day back in September. We got the package showing how they turned out, offers to buy it, etc. I always buy these, hang them on the wall, send them to my parents, etc. This year, my daughter said she hated the picture and didn't want me to buy it. It seemed fine to me, and when I tried to ask her what she hated about it, she just repeated that she hated it. She did ultimately agree to go to the reshoot, which to me also came out fine, but she insisted that it was also no good and not to buy it. I did anyway, thinking it'll be good for her to have when she's older. I know not all of my pictures from back then are perfect, but I'm glad I have them to look back on. I sent out the wallet sizes to my parents and gave a second print to her father. We're divorced. I hung up the original. My daughter freaked out and told me to take it down. I said she looked beautiful, and I wanted to have it. She got really upset but let it go. Later on, I realized it was missing and asked her. She admitted she destroyed it and broke the frame. She then said if I put any back up, she'd do the same. I lectured her for ruining property. Then her dad called and said he was getting rid of his copy, as he hadn't realized it upset her. I told him she was being overdramatic. It's not a bad picture. He said I was prioritizing showing her off over her mental health. I said this had zero to do with her mental health. She's being stubborn. Then her dad called my parents. My mom is on my side and says she'd have done the same, but my dad said he was throwing theirs out if it was upsetting her this much. Now she's gone to stay with him and isn't returning any calls. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot for putting it up, knowing full well that she hated the image. You chose to taunt her. It's different if you had saved it in an album to look at later, but you chose to make it something she'd have to look at. Your lack of empathy is disheartening. Also made sure that others got copies of it too, so the poor kid would risk seeing it when visiting their grandparents' or dad's place. I'm glad she full-on destroyed it. You don't deserve it when you use it that way. Think of how you would feel if someone posted or hung a photo of you that you hated. Same deal. My mother bought all my school photos that I hated. She had a particularly horrid one of me hanging in her house and doesn't care that I hate it. I'm a grown woman and it just reinforces the idea that she has no respect for me. If that's how you want your relationship to be, by all means, keep disrespecting her feelings. A little bit of background. My husband and I have been married for a year and are 14 weeks pregnant. We've been together for 5 years, currently 28 and 30. I have a pretty complex family dynamic in that I have 2 older sisters from my dad's side, then me. Then my parents separated when I was 9, got back together when I was 21, an entire drama. In that time, my mom had my little sister and my dad a little sister, both with previous partners. I in total have 4 sisters, aged 36 to teenage. My parents are very happy together, and all my siblings seem to get on with my parents / their step-parents. The issue comes that there's a view from my older sisters that I'm my dad's favorite due to being his only child with my mom. My older sister's been struggling with fertility for over 5 years, and my next older sister has never been in a relationship. My dad takes all his children, his partner, and his daughter's partners on a yearly family weekend. He pays. I found out I was 13 weeks pregnant. I missed the early signs, a week before the trip. My husband and I decided to wait until the trip, a week later, to tell my family, as all my immediate family would be there. I was especially excited to tell my mom. On the first night, while we sat down for dinner, I basically said, "How would you all feel if there was a baby surname here next year?" My mom got it and cried. My dad even cried, and everyone seemed happy. Today in a group text with my 2 older sisters, they said it was inconsiderate to my oldest sister and my other older sister, as it was rubbing it in. In addition, they said it was proving that our dad cared for me and my mom more than them. Obviously, I can't comment on their relationship with my dad and my mom. However, the actual pregnancy announcement I feel so sad about. I obviously am excited and hope they would be too. So, am I the idiot for announcing my pregnancy to my family at the same time on a family weekend? Not the idiot. Come on, she basically said, "Since I'm not pregnant, you're not allowed to be." It honestly sounds like this is less about the pregnancy and more about resentment over the perception that you're the favorite. So if you want to heal this rift, I would try to unpack that issue with them. Exactly my thoughts too. If it was an acute loss for her sister, be kind and wait a little while to announce. If it's just a fact of her life that she struggles with fertility, is OP just never supposed to have children herself to avoid that being painful for her sister? I also don't understand why the sisters would insinuate her announcing and seeing the parents cry joyfully means they love OP more. Unless they've made announcements and saw a subdued reaction by comparison, how do their brains even jump to that conclusion? People are so odd. I don't understand women who deal with infertility and think the world should suffer along with them. It's not your fault that they're having these issues, and you are allowed to celebrate and be celebrated. You literally had to announce this sometime. While it sucks to the oldest sister, who I think is likely understandably jealous, ultimately, you getting pregnant isn't doing anything wrong, so it's just something she has to accept. The other sister doesn't really have any defense. Honestly, I'd probably stop interacting with them as much now. My wife and I have 2 awesome kids, a male preschooler and a female toddler. And my wife is a mega Disney adult. The kids have been one time, but we don't have a ton of disposable income. I do well, but we're in a high cost of living area and have some debt. My family goes to Disney all the time. These trips are mostly planned by my aunt and paid for by my aunt or mom. They both still pay for all their grown kids' travel expenses. Before having kids, we were invited, and my mom always paid. But since having kids, they stopped including us. My mom has said that going to Disney with little kids is miserable, and no one else in the group has kids, so it would be awkward. My wife gets very offended by this, as she feels the kids are being treated poorly. No one owes anyone a trip, and it is nice that she used to take us. I get that kids aren't for everyone, and it seems fair that a bunch of adults wouldn't want kids around. My wife recently saw pictures of my sister's 21st birthday at Epcot and blew up that they were there again without us. She said that I needed to at least tell my mom how we feel and explained that this isn't what a normal grandmother does. I said I wasn't going to do that, as no one owes us a trip to Disney. My wife called me a coward and wouldn't hear me out. Not the idiot. And I wouldn't pay for your bratty wife to go on vacation either. This last trip was for your sister's 21st freaking birthday. Who the heck wants toddlers on a 21st birthday trip? You aren't a coward, but your wife is a brat. I would die a slow, painful death before I called someone and complained that they didn't pay for my vacations. Yikes! Peppa Pig and Legoland are better options for young kids. My niece recently took her kids there while visiting her snowbird mom. Her mom kept the kids for a couple of days, while niece and hubby went to the Harry Potter theme park and something else at Disney World aimed at adults. Your wife wants the trip to Disney for herself, not your kids. Exactly. Unlike your wife's opinion of you, you are the opposite of a coward. You're extremely brave for standing up to your selfish, entitled wife. Remind her to be grateful for all the free Disney vacations your mom has generously provided. If she goes with the "if you won't tell her, I will" route, point out how badly that will backfire on her. If she does, I can guarantee that none of you will ever be invited again.